Okay. 6.3. Postulate 20 is angle-angle similarity postulate. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the two triangles are similar. So if I look at this picture, this K is congruent to Y, J is congruent to X. Therefore, these two triangles are going to be similar at least. Because these two triangles are congruent, who remembers from last unit what else we know? The third angle is congruent also by third angle's theorem. That was in the last unit. Okay, so we actually know that all three angles are congruent to all three angles, but we only need to know two because then that in turn tells us the third one, but then that also tells us that they are similar. Use the diagram real quick, and I want you to match these up. Put in the blanks, the correct answers. On 5 and 6, you have to do math. They want the actual lengths on 5 and 6, okay? So go ahead and take a second to do those. Okay, so triangle A to B to C is congruent to triangle what? D, E, F. Very good. AB over DE is equal to what over EF? Which is equal to CA over, and make sure it's in those orders, guys. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 6. Blank over 12 equals 8 over blank. So what goes in the first one? Equals 8 over Y. So X, how did you guys set this up? What over what equals what over what is how I would have done it. But do you guys set up a proportion or not? Excellent. Again, that proportion could be set up multiple different ways. To check to make sure that your way works, make sure that your 6 is diagonal from your 12 and your X is diagonal from your 16. If it is, then you set it up a correct way. Cross multiply, you get 16X equals 72, I believe. Divide by 16 and I get 4.5. Now, remember how we talked about on Thursday? You do not want to use this 4.5 over 12 to set up your next one. Remind me why we don't want to do that. Awesome. Very good. Yep. Okay, so what is a proportion that I could have set up for y? What over what equals what over what? Okay, this is what I heard. If you set it up a different way, just make sure your 6 is diagonal from your y. And then you set it up a correct way. When I cross multiply, I get 6y equals 128. Divide by 6, and I get what? 21.3 repeating, so 1/3. A more accurate way to write that, 0.3 repeating. I guess you could put 0.3 and then a line above it also, right? Okay. Any questions on those? Okay, number 7 through 12. You are determining whether the two triangles are similar. If they are, write the similarity statement. So let's look at number 7 together. Anybody see? So they gave us that picture. They put these two markings on these sides. What do those markings mean? They're parallel. Okay. Anybody know what information I can pull out from this? What do I know? My vertical angles are congruent. Awesome. What else? That gives me one angle that's congruent. We need two in order. What? Yeah, we have alternate interior angle right here with this angle, right? Parallel, parallel, transversal, that's alternate interior angles. We have our two angles. Could I prove that this third one is also congruent? We could prove it by third angles theorem or by alternate interior angles theorem also, okay? But since I have two, I'm good to go on that. So what they're asking me to do is write the similarity statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write triangle. I'm going to put the first one in any order I want. So KMN is the order I'm going to go with, is similar to triangle. It's the second one where the order matters because we have to make sure to match it up correctly. So what matches up with K on the bigger triangle? Okay. What matches up with M on the bigger triangle? And then what matches up with N? Perfect. All right, so what I want for you to do right now is similar to this. I want you to go through and figure out, do I have similar triangles? And if I have similar triangles, put a couple markings to show that they're similar. and then write the similarity statement. So go ahead and do 8 through 12. Let's look at number 8. So this is 85, this is 45. How many degrees does that leave over for this angle right here? 50. So then if that's 50, we know that these two angles are congruent to these two angles. So we have similar figures, right? So I'm going to write my first triangle as JLK, which is not the way you had to write yours, but it has to match up with the correct letters. What letter matches up with J? Y. How about with L? And then K. There we go. Number 9, we have two triangles. We have this smaller triangle, and then we have the larger triangles. Do I have any angles that are congruent here? What are my angles that are congruent? Why is this congruent to this one? By what property? Corresponding angles. What else do I have? Yep, by what again? And then isn't J congruent to itself by reflexive? Okay. So then I have triangle JKN is similar to triangle what? Perfect. Okay. This one's a little bit more tricky to look at and see. I have this small triangle, right? It has an angle of 50, 45, and what would that angle T be? 85 degrees. Okay. And then I have the larger triangle, P to R to S, right? And R is 85, P is 50. Well, does that have two angles that match up at that point? Yes. So we have two triangles that are congruent. So we have triangle P to Q to T is similar to triangle. What matches up with P on the other triangle? P. What matches up with Q? And then with T? There we go. Any questions on that one? All right, two more. How many triangles does 11 actually have? There are 3. We have the small one. It's a 58 degrees. This is 90 degrees. How many degrees would be up top then? 32. We have the medium-sized one, which is 32, 90, and how many degrees would be up top here? And then we actually have a larger one that goes D to C to E. Okay? We're going to start with the small and medium and see if they are similar. Is this one similar to this guy? So triangle DEF is similar to triangle. So what's the medium one? What matches up with the D? C. What matches up with E? And then F? Okay. Let's also see if it matches up with the larger one. Okay. Are those similar to this larger one? I have a 32 degree, I have a 50 degree, and then how many degrees would that be up there? 90. So 58 plus the 32, right, would be the 90. So is it similar to the larger one also? Yes. So now let's match it up. Okay, so we're going from small to large. D on the small one was my 32 degree one angle. So what's my angle for 32 degrees on the big one? E was my 58 degree angle. So on the big one, which letter is that? E again. And then F was my 90 degree angle. So on the big one, it is D. Any questions? Okay. We had talked about a problem similar to this before. These 3 angles are congruent to each other. These 3 angles are congruent to each other, but what this is saying is not necessarily that these 3 are congruent to these 3, right? But if I think more deeply about them, if these 3 angles are congruent to one another, how many degrees are in a triangle? 180. So each of these angles would have to be how many degrees? Each of these 3 angles would have to be how many degrees? So are they truly similar to one another? So they actually are similar. My first triangle, I'm just going to say GHF. Does it really matter what it matches up with on the second one? Because isn't it true that I could rotate that second one and it's always going to match up? I'm just going to go in the same order it went here. So I'm going to say that's similar to RSQ. All right, any questions on that? All right, next page. Number 13. first, go ahead and label each of those with their correct point. So like R is at 0, 0. Go through and label each of these. Okay. So what they're wanting us to do is they want us to find what the coordinate point is for Z to make these two triangles similar to one another. So if they're similar to one another, then they have to have a proportional sides, right? So we're going to end up writing a proportion to solve to see how long R to Z has to be. Because they gave us certain coordinates and their horizontal and vertical lengths, I could quickly write in the length. So like T to R is how long? R to S is how long? X to R is how long? And then R to Z, we don't know. It's going to be our X value, right? So what's a proportion I could set up here to solve for the length of X? What over what equals what over what? What do you guys think? Awesome. 6 over 10 equals X over 20. Perfect. The side of this one over the side of the other one equals the side of the same one from the X, or from the 6 over the side of the 20. All we have to do then is cross multiply, so I get 10x equals 120. So x equals how much? 12. So if this is a length of 12, what's point Z going to be at? 12, 0, and that's what they're wanting. Okay, number 14. I want for you to draw a picture and try solving it start to finish on your own. How tall the flagpole is, but I know that the shadow is 50 feet. The person is 5 feet 4 inches, and that person's shadow is also 40 inches. So since this, I need to make the person in inches also so that they have matching units. So 5 feet 4 inches is how many inches total? Okay. It is okay for these to be in inches and for these two to be in feet. You could also put everything in 2 inches if you'd like. It is not okay for the person to be in feet and then its shadow in inches, because those two things correspond together and that'll mess the problem up. Does that make sense? Okay. Did you guys convert 50 feet into inches, or did you leave it as is? Okay, so how many inches is it? Okay. So how I would set this up is I do x over 600 equals 64 over 40. That is not the way you had to set it up, but please look to make sure that your x is diagonal from your 40. If it is, then you set it up a correct way. Cross multiply. I get 40x equals, how much is that? 38,400. Divide by 40, divide by 40. X equals how much? Okay, 960 inches. They say in the question, how tall is the flagpole to the nearest foot? If this were a multiple choice question on an ACT or on a Schoology test, do you think that they would probably give you 960 as an answer? Yes. So be careful on those questions, because what do I need to do with that to get my answer? I need to divide by 12. What is 960 divided by 12? 80. Okay, real quick because of time. Number 15, I'm going to tell you that we are going to set this up as 26 over 40 equals 20 over D. I want for you to look at 15 and 16. We'll finish them tomorrow at the beginning of class, or I'll go over them real quick. If you could just take 2 minutes to actually do those today during school, that'd be great. That's really the only thing I need for you to do, okay? Any questions? Okay, so on this one, from here to here is 40, because from here to here is 26. From here to here would be the 66 minus the 26. So I set up 26 over 40 equals 20 over D. I'm going to cross multiply. I get 2060 equals 800. Divide by 26, divide by 26, and D equals 30.77 inches rounded to the nearest hundred. On this one, you need to use Pythagorean theorem to find C, and then you just add them. Please read through these problems to make sure that you understand them. Then your answer is 83.27.